All right, great. So first thing first, this is a Q&A session. I think Kate can talk a little bit about what the offerings are for the Office of International Student. Can you finish that sentence?
And Scholar Affairs.
And Scholar Affairs, yes. I keep wanting to say student and scholar. I don't know. I'm still getting used to it. But I will get there. ISSA is what we're going to call it today. So let's see here. So I'm just going to throw a little welcome message in the chat, but as we go through, you guys ask questions in the Q&A, because really that's what we're here for. What programs are STEM eligible? How do I get a Social Security card? Can I work on campus? Where do I live? All of these questions are sort of the most common questions that we get asked. But I think, if you have specific questions about visas, anything like that, that's what Kate and I do. So my name is Melanie Pettengill. I'm the Associate Director for Graduate Admissions. And Kate, go ahead.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I am Kate Sacco. I am the Director of International Student and Scholar Affairs, otherwise known as ISSA. We just changed the office name, which is why we're still all getting used to it. I'm happy you're here with us.
Yes, absolutely. And so can you tell Kate just a little bit about what your office does and how it supports students, basically from getting off the plane, or actually, if we want to go even sooner than that, let's talk about getting admitted and then what?
Yeah, our office in partnership with admissions really supports broadly the international student experience from the time that you are a prospective student to the time you become an enrolled student, and even after graduation for some of you up to 3 years and beyond that if you have questions about your immigration process. So in each kind of phase of your time with us, we work with you slightly differently, but we always just want you to know that any questions that you have, even if it's not our office, please come to us and we're happy to kind of guide you or direct you where it might be more appropriate. So when I say the international student experience, I mean when you're coming, for some of you, maybe you're already in the United States. For many of you, you're coming from outside of the United States. And so we really support you with immigration piece, if you're on an F1 or possibly a J1 visa. And then also just life and, being a student in another country, getting you connected to resources like how to file your taxes, how to get a driver's license, and then just general adjustment, because it can be quite different for some people to live in a country that is not their home country and to speak in a language every day that may not be your native language. So those are the ways that I'm talking about the international student experience.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to share my screen real quick, just because it's a nice little bumper to this session, which is going to be recorded. So it's going to be a lot of information, and we just want to make sure that you guys are getting all the information that you need. So you'll see this on our YouTube channel, and we'll email you with all the recordings once they're up. So just wanted to put this up real quick. Now stop sharing so you can see our mouths moving and see our faces. We have a lot of English as a second language folks here, but we also have some hard of hearing. So we're going to be as clear as we possibly can. I am a well-known fast talker. Kate, you are so much better at this than I am.
We turn on captions?
Yep, the captions have actually already been turned on. So we've done this for everyone, which is great. And we actually have hired someone to help translate for a portfolio day tomorrow. So I'm really excited about that too.
That's great. That's great.
So let's get into the next steps of, so how our offices work together, maybe, I think can be an important thing, what they need to prepare for. And there's really nothing on the end of the application process. We look at your application first and foremost holistically. We're not looking to see what country you're from. We're looking at your portfolio. We're looking at the body of work that you're presenting as part of your application first and foremost. So I think a lot of students have that top of mind right now with the news happening about affirmative action happening in the United States right now. So just wanted to clarify a little bit about our admissions processes. So if you are admitted, there is no extra application piece for an international student, right? It's the same exact application. The only difference is your home country is different, and that's fine. I think that at the graduate level, we find that we're admitting, it's about 50-50. We're admitting about 50% domestic, 50% international. And the reason being is that it's really based on the merit of your application, not like I said, not where you're from. And that being said, financial aid is available to both domestic and international students. There's really not much of a difference, especially with international students. We understand, some currency translations are quite severe. So as we go down the road of if you're admitted, what's next with your finances, we walk you through that process.
Yeah, I just to kind of add to that, when you first get admitted, and as Molly mentioned, kind of how they look at reviewing the applications. But once you are admitted, you will work initially with the admissions team. They'll create it's called a Form I-20, and that is the legal document that says that RISD is your host school. We will be sponsoring you during your time at RISD and even after graduation. And so that document requires you to submit very specific, detailed information that it's very helpful to us and helpful to you to get things very done quickly when you read all of the instructions of what you need to do the first time. The biggest delay that we see and that students experience is because they don't submit all the documents right away in detail that we need. And then there's back and forth. And, we have 1,000 current students that are on F1s at RISD, or close to 1,000.
Can you explain what an F1 is?
Yes, I will get to that. And there are close to 300 incoming students between grads and undergrads. So, we have a lot of students that we're supporting. And so again, when you submit all the documents right away that you need, and that are accurate and correct, then we can get you your Form I-20. So then you can take that Form I-20 and go to apply at the U.S. consulate or embassy for your F1 student visa. So while you are in the United States with studying at RISD, you are considered to be on a student visa, and that is the F1 category. So you will take your documents to the U.S. embassy in your home country, or if you're living outside of the country where your passport's from, you can apply in that country. You cannot apply for a visa in the United States. So if you're here on a tourist visa or something visiting, you can't also just get the F1 visa while you're here. It has to be outside of the United States. So then once you have that, then you can make some travel plans to come and join us at RISD.
Yeah, and I'm just posting in some of the links for where to find out, like, what embassy should I go to? What are the wait times for that embassy? So I'm just trying to find maybe you have it. Let me see.
I
Wait
can find it.
time.
The visa wait times were really, some of you might know this already, really challenging during COVID because
Yeah.
some of the not that COVID isn't still happening, but it's very different now, and the embassies are all open and they prioritize the student visas. So the turnaround time for most consulates and embassies now are back to where they used to be, of 2 to 3 months to process. During the summer is the busiest time of the year at all the US embassies around the world, because that's when many students are getting ready to come to all the institutions that are all over the United States. So again, the quicker that you can get your I-20 information to, the information that we need for us to create the I-20, the better for you.
Should we go through what they need in more detail, Kate? So I can take this one if you can jump in if you like. So in order to, once you're admitted, you're automatically going to be given a series of documents to download. One of them is your I-20 application. This is basically just demographic information, current visa status. If you do happen to have a F1 visa, a J1 visa, most people just have a B visa, which is a tourist visa, which is fine. But we're reviewing that to make sure that to see where you're living, what country you are in, and so we can advise you best. The second piece is a declaration of finance form, which essentially shows how much funding you have to prove in order to get an I-20. And Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, we're still doing just 1 year of study, but those documents need to be shown to us so that we can see that you are able to afford not just tuition, but living expenses. So these things are all estimated on a higher level because we don't want you to come here and not be able to afford your materials, and that really just, it doesn't do yourself it does a disservice to your experience here, right? So we want to set you up for success. Along with that comes bank statements. We are getting and the government is getting more strict about what kinds of bank statements you can submit to prove funding. And those are actually posted. I think we have some examples on your website, Kate. We've been much more transparent about what a declaration of finance looks like, how to prepare for it. Of course, if you have sponsors, whether that be government sponsors, loans from your own country, they all need to be on that declaration of finance form. They need to be approved, nothing pending. Little details like that. Currency needs to be in USD dollars. So if, let's say you have pesos, you need to translate that, and we'll double check it to make sure if, say even 3 months has passed, that currency conversion may have changed drastically. So we'll go back to you. So this is it can be a very lengthy process, but we work very quickly, knowing that the sooner we can get your I-20 to you, the sooner you can create your visa appointment, and the sooner you can get here to start your program. So we are trying as hard as we can to get you through that process as quickly as possible. Now, I will say the one great thing about the declaration of finance form and admission at RISD is if you are admitted with any kind of a fellowship, which is RISD saying we think you're amazing and we understand your financial need, your merit is very high, we want you here. When that amount of money, which can range, there's no average amount, it could be $2,000, it could be $50,000. Like, it's really depends on the program, it depends on a lot of different variables. That can be added on to your proof of funding, because that is guaranteed to you as long as you are in good standing as a student for the duration of your program. So let's say you have a $25,000 fellowship. You put that on your declaration of finance form, and we know you're going to receive the $25,000 for the following year as well. So you deduct that from the total amount that you have to prove, which basically means it's just you have to prove less, right? So it makes it easier. So fellowships and assistantships are both part of that process. Did I cover everything?
Yep.
Okay, good. It's been a little while. That was last April. It's like a year ago. Feels like years ago.
Yeah.
We do have some questions coming in, Kate, unless there's anything you want to try to get ahead of. I did post some really important links there. The most important one is the most recent one is the travel. So you can look for your embassy, those wait times, what that looks like, because there, especially in larger countries like India and China, you may find that it's convenient to go to one embassy, right? But that the wait times are less at another embassy. So we've had students sort of try to figure out the best way possible because there are so many students from these larger countries that are studying in the States, so the wait times tend to be a little bit longer. All right, so let's start going into questions because we've got quite a few here. Can international students apply for fellowships and assistantships, and what are the steps to do so? Excellent question. There isn't really much you have to do. First of all, you have to apply. Then you have to be admitted. But after you click submit and you apply, your application is complete, something's going to pop up in your portal. And what that is it's called an institutional financial aid form. And what this does is it allows us to understand your financial circumstances, whether your parents are going to be supporting your graduate funding, whether you have government funding, whether you have a Fulbright. It gives us a better picture of what your financial circumstances are, because we don't want it to be a guessing game. We don't want to guess based on the economy of the city that you live in, right? We want to know what your situation is. So that's just one extra step. It helps us identify, how much your need is, and knowing that you're an admitted student. So that's the helpful piece. So the quick answer is yes, and you do qualify for those things, but there's no application that you have to actually fill out to get them. Yeah. Okay. All right. This one's definitely for you. I see a J1 and I'm like, no, sorry, not me. Hello, I was a J1 from December in 2021 to April 2022. I have a social security number, but it says it's for work only. In this case, what I have to get is social security number for studying.
So they put different notations on the Social Security. That's a great question. But they put different notations on the Social Security cards. And I think you would be fine to use that as well for your F1. I would need to check with our student employment office. Anytime that you start work at a new job in the United States, whether it's on campus, off campus, you have to fill out a form called the I-9 to show that you can legally work in the United States. Excuse me. For that I-9, you have to show your Social Security card. And so I think you'd be able to work. You'd be able to do your assistantship or fellowship or on-campus employment. You cannot work. No F1 student can work off campus. That includes Brown University. We've had some challenges with that because students think because we're so close in distance that they're right, like literally our neighbors. And some faculty at RISD also teach at Brown. And so students think that they can also work at Brown University, but that is actually considered off-campus employment. So anywhere on campus, I can get into more employment questions if that's, it's a little early for you to be thinking about that. You're right now thinking about applying and what that means. but in general, to answer your question, Valeria, it would be fine for you to use that once you get your social security number, it's yours forever and ever and ever. That number will not change, but maybe the notation on the card will.
Yeah, and I feel like this does bring up a point about change of status too, Kate. I don't know if you want to dive into that a little bit more.
Sure.
Because we do have students that are here working in the United States. We have students here that are on F2 visas. And so what does that look like for those students who are, I say students, workers or spouses or folks that are here living in the United States, but not on an F visa? What does that look like for them?
Yeah. So if you're already in the United States, in the United States, there are a variety of visa types, and each visa type is a letter of the alphabet and has very specific things that you can do on that visa type. So the B1, B2 is a tourist and business visa. The O visa is for outstanding talent or ability. The P visas for performing artists. So even superstars that are coming to perform in the United States need to get visas. I say that because if you're already in the US on an F2, on an H4, on an H1, on a J1, you will need to change your intention, your visa type from whatever you're doing to a student so that that you're studying full time. There are some visa types that you can study that you don't need to change your status from 1 to the F, from wherever you're on to the F1. I would recommend, if you can study on the visa that you're currently on, to also understand what that means. So there are some students who think, I'm just going to stay on the visa I'm already on, it's easier. It might be easier, but it might also not allow you to work after graduation or things like that. So it's really important to kind of just understand and gather information on what the benefits and challenges are of changing. To change your status from one to another, obviously we will help you with that process. But you either need to leave the United States, apply for the visa in your home country or a country outside of the United States at the US Embassy, and then you would re-enter as an F1. If you want to change your status in the United States, that is possible. It takes a long time. They're very delayed on those applications in the US. And during that time that they're processing that application, you cannot leave. And so again, each individual case is just very individual and very specific. So we'll work with you, but that's generally speaking, if that's something you need to think about.
Definitely. And yeah, again, your point of contact at this point is admissions. Ask your question and we'll figure out which place to send you, right? So don't feel like you're like, oh God, who do I contact? Just contact us on admissions, or basically your resource, your facilitators for everything RISD. We'll send you where you need to go. Okay. Next question. Hello. My undergraduate major was engineering, not design and arts, but I have 5 years of professional experience. Would I be able to be considered for the 2-year graphic design program if I apply, or would I be placed in the 3-year program if my candidacy makes it to the program? So this is a better question for some of our other sessions, but I'll just quickly say you can apply for the 2-year or 3-year program graphic design, regardless of which one you apply for. If your application is something that is admittable, like we would love to have you here, we're only going to admit you to the program that's the right fit for you. So if you're not ready for the 2-year program, you may find that you applied to the 2-year program, but you got admitted to the 3-year program. So we're reviewing for both. There's no separate department. There's no separate office. It's all the same faculty reviewing 2-year and 3-year applicants. So I wouldn't worry about it. Just put together the best portfolio that you can. I will say though that most people that do not have the BFA or BA in graphic design do have to do the 3-year program to get you up to speed just with those basic courseworks like type 1, type 2, so you can hit the ground running when you hit the 2-year MFA curriculum. So I know I talk really fast. Okay, we're gonna work on this. All right, so next question. Good morning, ma'am. And I prefer miss, but that's okay. I'll take ma'am. I'll take ma'am. We're getting there, Kate. We're in ma'am stage, I suppose. I am Nandi Serene from India, pursuing 4-year undergraduate degree in a Bachelor of Design and Visual Communication. The medium of instruction of the degree program is English. I have a letter from the university stating so, and the college transcripts and the medium of instruction was English. Do I need to give an IELTS, which is one of our English proficiency required tests, or can it be waived? If it's waived, am I still eligible to apply for scholarships? So first, I just want to say everyone is eligible for fellowships and assistantships and scholarships at RISD, regardless of your international or domestic status, okay, period. Secondly, waivers are not guaranteed. However, there is a process after you submit your application, so we can review your transcripts. We can review the letter from your university that you received your degree from. We will send you a link to a form to fill out and say, this is why I think I should have a waiver. There's a process. We review the waivers. Usually it's myself or one of my colleagues. We review these waivers individually. And if it's waived, it will no longer show up as a material that is required. So the first thing you need to do is apply and complete your application before you can be given a waiver. So that's the quick answer. But for the most part, the way I talk about it is that if you have received a bachelor's degree in 3 years of study or a 3-year diploma degree equivalent to a 4-year bachelor's degree, that the language of instruction was entirely in English, and no more than 1 to 2 years have passed since graduating, or if you have remained in an English-speaking country or area, that would qualify you for a waiver. So there are a lot of variables here, right? So let's say someone graduated from a 4-year degree in Australia and then went back to their home country. I'm gonna make up Poland or Spain or somewhere in Europe, and all of a sudden they're losing a lot of those skills, right? So we don't just blatantly say, yes, you get a waiver if you've done that. We really do look at it very carefully because instruction here is in English. And while we do have support systems in place for those who do need help, and actually, Kate, I don't know if you can throw in the link to the Arts and Language Center, because that's just an amazing resource for you. They offer a 1-week intensive course. They also offer support throughout the semester, but it is extremely important for us to know that you're able to communicate effectively in the English language here in order to receive a degree here. So it's kind of a long answer, but it's meant to be that way. It's a tricky process, but we look at it very carefully.
Well, and I'd like to, it's less about like taking a test and checking a box, and it's more about you being successful in the United States as a student here, and then eventually perhaps as an employee. Like, so it's not meant to be a blockade. It's actually meant to, we put it in place. So we want students to be as successful as possible and recognize that some of you may have already been in English only speaking environments. So that's great. As someone who studied outside of the United States in a language that was not my native language, it takes a minute for me. It took a minute for me. I'll speak for myself, to kind of, it can be very tiring to sit in a classroom all day, and listening to a language that is, you're just not used to hearing all day, every day. So there's a transition period. It's possible. But for those of you who are looking to waive, yeah, like Molly said, that process is looked at and there is one in place for that. But the ultimate goal is that you're successful. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It is based on the fact that we want you to be successful. We don't want you to be able to struggle here. Critique culture. I just want to talk about that very quickly, because being in a part of a school like RISD means you have to get up in front of other students and present your work. And you need to be able to communicate effectively to be able to receive feedback, to be able to progress in your work, which is really what we do here. So that means that's the kind of success we want to set you up for. And so the communication is not just written, and it's not, like Kate said, just checking a box and a test. It is also verbal, lots of reading happening here. And also, I think this is a good point to just state that our IELTS minimum score is 6.5. Our TOEFL minimum score is a 93. We do also offer my best scores. We also allow home test scores, and we've added Duolingo, which is a different test. It's much cheaper and it's a much quicker turnaround time for those of you who just want to make sure that we know there's no question about your ability to speak English. I highly recommend that test. And you can see all of that on our website too. I'll post that in the link in the chat. So I'm really glad that we spent time talking about that, because that's a really big question. All right, so next question. Can graduate program students apply for dorms, living in the dorms, or will there be any assistant looking for residences? Kate, maybe you can take that one, and I'm going to go ahead and post our score requirements, test score requirements.
Yes, the very short answer is absolutely. So any students where the RISD is a very urban campus, and so most of our students actually live on campus. We have a total of about 2,500, 2,600 students between the undergraduates and the graduates. There are about 500 graduate students and about 2,000 or 2,100 undergraduate students. And like I said, most of our students live on campus. If you choose to live off campus, you can do so. There's a requirement for undergraduate students to live on campus for at least the first 2 years. But after that, they can go off campus. But for graduate students, there's no requirement. So it's really up to you. We do have some assistance available for when you're looking for apartments. There's a lot of good resources, and there's Facebook groups and stuff if you have access to Facebook, to get connected to possible roommates, to kind of understand what the process is to look for housing and ways to be safe looking for housing, because it's challenging to look for apartments if you're not physically here. So we do provide kind of support and resources of even how to kind of go about making sure that you're protected as much as possible.
And I think your department is a good place to start, because as you're coming in and let's say you're admitted in the springtime, you're going to be here by June, July, August, depending on when your program starts. Everybody's moving out in May. Everybody is graduating in June. So there are going to be some vacancies, and they're like, man, I would really love another student from my country. We have 2 students from Botswana from this past year that they're all pumped. I'm not sure if they actually came, but they were all excited about connecting and living together. And so there is this idea that with a smaller school, the department can help support that too. So it happens a little bit more organically versus just going on Facebook groups or things like that. So always start with your programs and the students that are already in the program first, because they'll probably have better recommendations from versus someone like me or Kate.
Well, and Providence is a pretty big, we have quite a few colleges in a very small, like in a very close space, which is great because it's pretty easy for students to get to campus and to their apartments. But like Molly said, there's kind of a cycle of when people are moving in and out of spaces. And so, yeah, I agree to just connect with your department is really smart.
Housing's great too. I don't know if maybe we should put the link to housing here, because they are like, they know how to look at a landlord or an application. For example, you should never be wiring money without, you know, any support here in the States. There are scams going on. There are always scams going on across the world, right? So we just want to be able to protect our students. So I'm just going to give you the quick link to housing at RISD. And they're just an amazing resource too, to be like, oh, there's your student, where do I even start? What do I do? They are incredible people. And again, we have a very small student population, so they're able to help us. Okay. Keep asking your questions. We got 20 minutes left, guys. And you know, for any of you brave souls who want to hold your hand up and ask your question out loud, feel free to do so, but I don't want to put you on the spot. But keep the questions coming. These are really, really great questions. The next one is, I have a dual citizenship, Italy. Usually I travel outside my home country, Peru, under the ISSA. I don't know what that is. Maybe Kate does.
Thank you.
And there are limitations or problems that I could encounter due to this condition. I would apply for the F visa as a Peruvian.
No, you can keep your ISSA status, and you can, each visa status is looked at differently. So they're each their own separate thing. And when you enter the United States and you go through Custom and Border Protection, they'll ask you, you know, what are you here in the US to do? Is it to travel around? Is it to work? Is it to study? Is it to perform? Whatever it might be. So that's the visa that they'll look at when they're letting you into the US.
Yep. Okay.
Great question though.
Yeah, and if anybody does have a dual citizenship, US and another country, you do not need to apply for an F1 visa. Correct, Kate?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and if you ever have a question, let's say you have 2 international visas, maybe it's I don't know how I just keep coming up with these random countries, but if you have 2 countries that are not of the United States, let's say Canada is one of them, you say, hey, which one should I come in on? We can advise you which visa, which passport to use to come in, because some countries obviously have different relationships with the US than others, right? So that's an important thing. And we have we have a pulse on that. We know which countries get through the visa process quicker, wait times, etc. So we do know a little bit there.
Glad you mentioned
any
Canada.
other,
I'm
yeah,
glad
go ahead.
Canada, because if you're a Canadian passport holder, a Canadian citizen, you do not need to go physically to the United States Embassy to obtain your F1 visa. you actually get it while you're entering the United States. So customs will give you your F1 status when you enter the US. So you don't need, usually the consulate or embassy will put like an actual picture stamp in your passport. But the Canadian students will not have that. You'll just have it on your I-94, which I can talk about as well. When
And then maybe we should include Puerto Rico too.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, Puerto Rico doesn't need anything.
Okay, because we get it's it's crazy. We get so many questions from applicants from Puerto Rico. Yeah, you don't need anything at all.
Yeah, just a passport.
Just a passport. That's it. Okay, so that was answered. All right, so we have another one here. I have the FCE from Cambridge University, B2 level. Would I still have to take the TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so here's the thing. If that is a English proficiency test and it's not the TOEFL, the IELTS, or the Duolingo, then no. I recommend that you take the Duolingo because I do know what the B2 level is. And we would want you to take another test because B2 is sort of right on the cusp of what's acceptable for our school. We're really looking for a C level, and these are the standard levels, the European standard language levels. So yes, I would advise you highly. It makes your application more competitive, to be perfectly honest with you. If you have a question in your head of whether or not you think you can do better, take the test again. There's no reason why you can't. The only caveat to this is that the test needs to be submitted along with your application. You cannot submit your application without your English proficiency scores, because then we will review your application, but then you're just kind of hanging there waiting, and all the other students are getting admitted and they're coming. Our classes are filling, right? While you wait for your scores to come in. So it's extremely important that you start right now, that you take your test now, because there are wait times for those to get processed through ETS to come into our system. And you can ask us every day, but until we get those tests, we can't make a decision on your application unless you have an official waiver, right? So making sure that timing is important. Some schools are different. Some schools say, yeah, just go ahead, we'll do it later. You have to have your English proficiency test scores completed, even if it's an unofficial copy. It needs to be submitted with your application by the due date, which is January 5th.
I also will say, like, we have to report to Homeland Security what our admission requirements are and what tests we're accepting or not accepting. So as Molly mentioned, the TOEFL, IELTS, and the Duolingo tests are the only ones that we're currently accepting. So there's like a legal piece of it too, that we're only certified for these specific tests at this time.
Exactly. Okay, so what other questions do we have out there? The number is dwindling, but this is going to be recorded and we're going to put it out to all of our international applicants because there are about 1,000 of them. I don't know where these 1,000 people are.
Does anyone have questions? Oh, go ahead.
No, it's just it's funny. It's almost like we say these are going to be recorded. They're like, nah, I'll skip this one and I'll just watch the recording later. But then you don't get this like funny banter,
Yeah. True.
But go ahead, Kate. Yeah, let's prompt someone. Prompt some questions.
I'm just wondering if people have questions. I know that we've mostly had questions about like very logistical, practical things. And that's great. That's one of the purposes of this. But also if you have questions about Providence, about RISD, about what it's like to be here, what is the social life like? I mean, there are other parts of your student experience outside of the academics and like the logistics. And, if you've already decided, absolutely you're applying to RISD, great. But maybe you want to, if you haven't been here, have questions about what it's like to be here. So if anyone has questions like that, we're happy to answer those as well.
You know what? This is a great time for me to show you guys our campus tour, which was taken sort of in the middle of the transition out of the pandemic. So it feels a little empty, but at least it gives you a sense of like the space and how close everything is. So I'm going to share this link with you.
Sandra, you should use your US passport.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we answered that one. Okay. Oh, I keep putting in housing. I don't know why it's not. There we go. Copy link. Sorry, guys. Okay. There's the link to the YouTube for the campus tour. And I guess we'll give it like one more minute. Otherwise, we can end a little bit early. Anybody have any last minute questions for Kate and I? We're here for you. You can continue the conversation. Again, email us at admissions@risd.edu because Kate's office is very, very, very busy. And what we do is we try to alleviate that by answering the questions that we can. I'm a DSO. We have a couple in our office. We do the I-20, so we can answer a lot of those questions. So email us at admissions@risd.edu if you do have any remaining questions. Here comes one more. Good question. Hello, I took my IELTS in March last year. Is it still valid for the application? March last year, so March of 2021. So we usually say within the year. That's usually our standard. If you have a very high score, occasionally we'll say okay because it's a very high score, but we're trying to create more of a policy where that 1 year is a hard line. So for your situation, it would make your application again more competitive if you took it again, because my guess is you might do better this time. And the higher the score, the better. This is all part of your application and the competitiveness to get into RISD. So I would not overlook that importance.
Yeah. And language learning is not a finite skill. It's an ongoing, infinite, whenever I go, I studied in Mexico, and every time I go back, like my Spanish gets really good again, and then I don't speak it for a while and it's not good again. So it's one of those things that's always good to have it. I like the year is a good amount of time to have that be the measurement.
Mm-hmm.
Valeria asked, is Providence dangerous? My country has a high crime rate, and I want to know if Providence is safer or if I have to be extra careful around the city. Do you want me to answer that, Molly?
I mean, I definitely have, more talking points in this because I get more questions about this, Kate. But in the United States, obviously, there are more places that are more dangerous than others. Really large cities, there's crime, of course. But I also just want to say there's crime in every city. Doesn't really matter where you are. Small town, big town. We're a small city. And the beauty of that is that we do have a lot of public safety. So we have public safety at RISD. We have public safety at Brown, and they are right next to the corner. So you're going to see a RISD police car go by and a Brown police car go by at the same street again and again. And they park in areas that are, not well lit. but we do also have, as a private school, we have extra offerings for you guys. So we know that sometimes you're working till the middle of the night. And if that's what you want to do, cool. We have something called RISD Rides, and it's a van service that will pick you up. Brown also has a little bus transit, their own little bus transit system that we also have access to. And then on top of that, we have RIPTA, which is the Rhode Island Transportation Bus System. This goes anywhere in the state. And so I think, and then we also have just the beacons. I don't know what they're called. The safety poles that have emergency numbers where you can dial for public safety anytime. Those were pre-cell phone era. Now you just call public safety if you feel unsafe in any way. Anytime a crime is reported in the entire city of Providence, we are alerted, the entire student and staff and faculty body, just so we know. I would say it's not as frequent as New York City or some larger cities, but you know, being a small city, there is some benefit to that, but there's crime everywhere. I don't know how I would ever compare it to where you live. I don't know what that crime is like. But the crimes around here tend to be, you know, petty theft or, you know, carjacking, things like that, smashing car windows. But again, you know, around here, the police know where these areas are and they do patrol them often. So I would say the worst crime is our parking ticket system. But that's just me. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of access that we provide to you. We want to create a very safe environment for our students. We have key card access to every building, so you can't just walk into a building, you have to have access to it. So you know that strangers are not just wandering around your building unless they're led by an admissions tour group or something like that. Kate, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think, you know,
Yeah.
that's one of the things at public safety when they present at orientation and stuff, they say, you know, Providence is a very safe city, but it's still a city. And so, as Molly said, there are local and state police around, and there's our kind of campus police available, but it's still, you know, good to not walk by yourself at night. And, you know, it's
Absolutely.
not have your headphones on when you're walking around during at
If
night.
you go out with friends, stay with your friends. Don't leave your friends. If your friend's leaving early, you leave early with them, you know. So there are just basic, you know, safety protocols that you wouldn't want to do anywhere in the world. Go home by yourself. You know, find a friend, call a friend. RISD Rides is great. They go, I think usually, I think it's pretty late at night. And I think that is actually beyond crime. It also helps with how cold it gets here. So you don't have to walk in the snow at home. To go home at, say, you know, 1 o'clock in the morning, you can just call RISD Rides, they'll come pick you up. So we're coming to a close here, and these questions are fantastic. The questions don't stop here. Again, you email us at admissions@risd.edu, but let's see if we can fit some in. We did start about 2 minutes late, so, you know, we can give it some more time, as long as Kate is okay with that. Okay. So thank you, this is great. Also, there's a big Hispanic, Latino, Peruvian community at RISD. Oh, yeah, sorry. Is there a big Hispanic, Latino, Peruvian community at RISD? How is campus life for international students from South America? You got that, Kate? Okay.
Sorry, I was just getting a link for the statistics of who's on our campus. So I'm going to put that in the chat so you can see where students are from and how many students we have and how many students are in each major and all of those wonderful things that people want to know. We do have a really great community at RISD of both international students, but also—
Sorry, Kate, I just wanted to say I just reposted it because you have to include everyone. That was for hosts and panelists when you put something in there. So I'm just gonna go ahead
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
repost some of these. It's all right. It's for the recording purposes.
Yep.
It's just easier to just have it in there.
Thanks. I may have done that before with the center. I did.
Nope, I got it. I just fixed it. Go for it.
Thanks. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm
Don't worry about it.
technologically challenged this morning. So yeah, if we do have a lot of student clubs as well. So you can get connected to different interests and things you might have that way. Grad students and undergrad students are welcome to attend all of them. The other night, I know they had oh my gosh, they had a dance class. The Latin club at RISD is called Mango Street. And they did just, and it was packed. It was a totally full in the tap room, which is one of our popular student spaces. So the answer is yes. I mean, but also if you're not seeing the community that you want, or you're having a hard time finding it, you can connect with my office, or there's a few other great offices on campus that can get you connected to, excuse me, clubs and organizations. We occasionally, if you are like the only student, or there's only 2 of you from a certain country, Brown University, also any of our students can participate in their clubs and organizations. And I've had students that I've gotten connected to communities up there as well, just generally. So we will get you connected if you're feeling like you haven't found your people, and whatever that means, if it's by interest or a certain identity that you hold or a certain country, we will make sure that you find your community. Providence has a pretty rich, I mean, even not just in the campuses, but if you have a faith community that you want to be part of, we can get you connected there. So we want to make sure that you not only are enjoying your studies at RISD, but also that you're feeling like your whole self can be enjoying the experience in the United States.
Thank you. All right. Can you elaborate on the working visa? As F1 visa does not allow to work off campus, so if in a case someone ends up not getting an on-campus assistantship, then to sustain financially, are there other ways to go about it?
So I will say you can work on campus for as much time as you want. You have 2 opportunities to work off campus, and they're each for one year each. So you can do 1 year of curricular practical training, it's called, and 1 year of optional practical training. They're processes that I'm happy to get to in a later time. On our website, we have a whole section actually just on employment. So you can go there and also find some hopefully good information. And after you're during those moments of off-campus employment, you are still on the F1 visa. It's only if you decide to stay beyond your 1 year after graduation of work that you would need to apply for another visa type. And we also help facilitate that process. So the other thing I will say is there are currently 6 majors at RISD that are considered to be STEM eligible, or they're eligible for a STEM OPT extension. What that means is, in addition to the 1 year of CPT, 1 year of OPT, you get 2 years of STEM OPT. So you could potentially be in the United States up to 3 years after graduation on your F1 student visa, because those employment options are all a benefit of your student visa. The US government says, thank you for studying and spending your time in the United States. And we understand that you've gained the skill and knowledge. So you want to practically apply it and maybe gain some work experience in the US. And these are the ways you can do it.
Mhm. Excellent. And that's it. You guys, excellent questions today. Thank you so much for all of your participation. Again, the conversation doesn't end here. Email us at admissions@risd.edu and we will point you in the right direction. Kate, so good to see your face. And for everyone else, I hope to see you in another session. So thanks everybody for coming.
Okay, see you later. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.